All right, well, it is 5 o'clock. We have a quorum, so I will call this meeting to order. Kyle, would you call the roll?
Ms. Boehm, Ms. Chaput,
Present.
Mr. Dribbin, Mr. Dugan,
Present.
Ms. Finney, Mr. Heil,
Here.
Ms. Kirkton, Mr. Klemp is here, Mr. Yoakley, Mr. Eppers, Ms. Johnson.
Here.
You have quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next up is the approval of the minutes, which we have in front of us. Does anybody have any questions or comments or corrections before we approve? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the public comment section. We have one card from Dave Buck. Topic, Yogi Berra.
Dave Buck, 124 South Elm. My apologies. I know it's late in the game, but Yogi Berra famously said, "It ain't over till it's over." And in my opinion, it's not over for you guys yet. So I want to just share some final thoughts from one resident's point of view down the street. First of all, I think the charter, the new charter, should have a one-page org chart. The current city charter does not have an org chart, but every annual budget of this city does have an organizational chart. And it's a visual depiction of what our form of government looks like on one simple piece of paper. And I think for the residents, I think they could use it. I think they need it, and it deserves to be in the charter. But then it leads to a question. At the top of that organizational chart is not mayor and city council, it's the residents. The mayor and city council does not report to the residents. We don't report to mayor and city council. Mayor and city council reports to the residents. So it begs the question, what powers do we have in a government by the people, for the people, and of the people? What powers do the residents have at the top of our organizational chart? And I think those deserve to be defined, whatever they are, in our city charter. Under city council powers, I would suggest thinking about adding strategic planning as one of those powers. To Laura and the current city council's credit, they developed the first true strategic plan in the 23 years that I've been here. But I think, like from my 40-year business career, strategic planning is done, in my case, every year, but it could be done every 4 years, a cycle, every 3 years, 4 years, 8 years. I don't care. But I think it's a definitive power and responsibility that should be defined in the city charter, because I think we need to get in that discipline of doing strategic planning on a regular basis. And in terms of linking this back to the powers of the residents, see, I would put two things in there. I would say that residents have the power to evaluate the strategic plan before it's approved. And secondly, the residents have the power every year to evaluate city council on its performance against their objectives. We don't do that now. We haven't done it in the 23 years I've lived here. And I think it'd be a good process to finally do that. Next is, we just had our 4th Porch Fest in the Southwestern neighborhood. We move it every year. And I've been thinking hard about it, because I think neighborhoods, even more than city council, is at the core of our community. When Plant and Gore and Lockwood took the train in 1853 to form Webster Groves, Webster Groves was formed in 5 basic neighborhoods: Webster Park, Tuxedo Park, Selma, Orchard, Old Orchard, and Webster. After 40 years, they existed. Then they merged together to form the city of Webster Groves and incorporated in 1896. But I think neighborhoods are the core of our identity. I think they're more important to this community actually than city council, because this is what people really identify with. Our neighborhoods are tight, they're cohesive, they identify people. Lastly, I would just say, I mentioned this last time, I think our charter deserves to have a code of ethics. After Senator Menendez, Clarence Thomas, Donald Trump, Hunter Biden, on and on, it boils down to trust. And I think if we have a code of ethics defined on one page, it's not hard, on one page in our city charter, it defines how we do business, not just what we do, but how this city does business. Those are my comments.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
All right, and Kyle, would you update the minutes to reflect that Ms. Finney has joined
Yes,
us?
thank
Thank you. All right, we have no items under governance. So under new business, review the draft charter, review recommendations, report to council. Joe, would you take lead on that?
Yes, sure, Madam Chair. What I sent around to members last night was kind of a working draft of the report as we're pulling it together, and that's kind of melding together the individual pieces that have come in, both from Jeannie Kirkton, myself, and others here, and kind of pulling it together into a consistent format and looking through factual information and making sure we have everything in order here. I'm happy if members want to hear during this time to do a walkthrough of that document, or if you want to provide any kind of comments at this point based on the draft that was shared last night, realizing that was, fairly short notice, but we could walk through it here during the course of the next, half hour, hour, however we want to approach this. Whatever the pleasure of the members are.
I'm happy to go through it. No,
You say you don't need to, or you're
no, I'm happy to. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to if people would find it useful.
Okay.
2 seconds here.
So Eric's going to pull it up on screen. And my apologies. I was on vacation for the prior 2 weeks before our last meeting. So I was kind of out of commission there. And now that, Jeannie's out of commission for the next, 10 days or whatever it is while she's on vacation. So I'll walk through this and just kind of, we'll give comments as we go through here, the title page, and then we have a listing of the members, whether we do a listing of government liaisons. This was in Jeannie's draft. I kept it for now.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Are we making edits as we go through?
We can.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a small edit, but the 0 is an O in 2023.
Oh.
Up one more.
Good catch.
That is good proofing.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, just mark it for now. Okay. And then on the next page is we give an introduction of the history of the charter process and the appointment of our current charter board members, the timeline that was given to us at the start of the process. And then I talk a little bit here about the meetings held and some of the votes. Is that a duplication there?
Looks like it.
Oh, okay. Got to work on. Okay, mark that second one. Oh, what happens when you're doing things late at night? Yeah. Okay. And then talk a little bit briefly here about our methodology of our decision as a body to do a comprehensive review of the charter rather than looking at specific sections. For now, I've included a brief listing of the meeting dates that have occurred since October of last year, as well as the establishment of the subcommittees and the membership and the meetings held of those subcommittees. And Melissa will correct the dates of the public engagement charter part, which I think you pointed out were
Oh, did you want me to correct that? I'm sorry. I thought you were making that correction.
No,
but I can do so.
I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we'll do that. I'll
Changing that start date.
Right. Yeah. So we'll get that corrected. Then here in this section, we've recounted, the listening sessions that have been done, the small group listening sessions at the library, the meeting that Paul Driven and I did with the North Webster Neighborhood Coalition, which was essentially another small listening group. Then the second one, official one, and talk a little bit about the online community survey, the process there and the participation. We will include the full survey results as an addendum to the report, as well as the comments. And then there's the open house meeting, and the comments that were cataloged from that event we will also include here in the report. Now, this section here, Jeannie had pulled this together. I have not really reviewed this real closely, but what she was seeking to do was to list the materials that we've reviewed as part of our process, both the written materials as well as the presentations that we've done, and also to share, the works in progress in terms of the documents. Whether we keep that in the upfront part here, or whether we put that back in the addendum, I'm kind of wanting to kind of think through, because I think for the purposes of the city council and for the residents, they kind of want to get to the recommendations and understand what those are. So we may do some reformatting and changing of the order of things in the document, as well as the categories that are listed here. This section here may be more appropriate in the back of the document. I'm open to ideas, though. The chair also pulled together this priority ranking, and what, as I understand, the chair was seeking to do was to help put a spotlight on the recommendations that had both large majority in favor of and had high priority or relative high priority, and to show that in this sort of a table. Yeah.
The first one doesn't total 9. I think just priority 1 needs to be 8 instead of 9.
Oh, okay. Good, thank you. Does anybody have any other comments here on the board on this section? You feel that that's useful?
What's the title on that?
What we're calling it is Charter Amendment Vote and Priority Ranking Table at this point.
I guess I kind of wonder if it would make more sense later if it's confusing before it's been explained, but I don't have strong feelings.
Oh, like a summary instead of
Well, or if this was
Preview.
after all the other stuff. Yeah. Oh, I'm not.
I think it's a little confusing here too. Full disclosure, I kind of skimmed over it when I was looking at it because I'm like, what is this? And it made no sense to me. I did not look at the title either. So,
Right.
But I do feel like it could be confusing just throwing it in here and before we've talked about all of those things.
Okay, that's good comments here. Let me kind of take that into consideration, figure out if there's if a different location for this table. I see the purpose of it. But to your point, you having it come up real early here in the document without context, and it sort of maybe cast things in a certain light, maybe too far in advance. I don't know.
I could kind of see it leaving it where it is. It's just like, for me, if I were looking at it, I'd be like, oh, that's 60 pages or whatever. But here's kind of a roadmap to the weighted prioritization. Just sort of like, okay, what were the things that seemed the most important to the people who are evaluating it? So I'm not going to gripe if it gets moved to the back, but I can see an argument for leaving it in the front.
Right. And without getting into an argument about priorities, I think what the chair was seeking to do was to use the numbers to help prioritize.
Mhm.
So by looking at the items that, received unanimous votes or 8-1 or that, this was kind of the purpose here to help show, both the ones that had large consensus as well as, where we've instinctively put things in terms of priority level. Obviously, the priority 1, 2, 3, which means or can be interpreted as high, medium, and low priority is very subjective, and we all agreed that it's a subjective measurement, and we're just trying to help share with the council and the community. Here are the ones that we feel are of highest priority. Go ahead.
I would just maybe add, because the reader won't know the context, that, I mean, it makes sense probably that 1 is the highest, but maybe just change it to priority high, or high priority, medium priority, low priority, instead of 1, 2,
Okay.
3.
Which I think is how it is
In the document
in the
itself.
document
Yeah.
itself. Yeah. I understand
Okay.
our voting was 1, 2, 3, but
Okay.
And so forgive me because I don't have it in front of me. Do we present it in this order in the report, or do we present it chronologically?
We present it
Or-
in terms of the
How it's
charter.
presented in the charter,
Yes.
right? Okay.
And frankly, I haven't had time to think about whether we want to change the order of the document.
I think that's why it's confusing to
Yeah.
me, but again, realizing
that makes sense. Yeah. I see what you mean.
yeah.
Well, let me revisit how we and where we use this and in what context. We are thinking of having some sort of a table of contents up front, because I think even when I reformat this in less spacing and shrink it in, whatever, it's still going to be 30, 40 pages.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe more than that with the addendum materials, I guess. So I think a table of contents is going to be needed at this.
Yeah. Matthew, you had a comment?
So with these, it would be nice to have them link to the sections in the report. That way people can go back and forth between this and, well, what does that mean and what does that entail? And we just use it as an internal link.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that can be done. I mean, obviously it can be done once we go to the PDF stage, and that would be very easy to do. I mean, and we'll probably want to look at doing this hyperlinking throughout other areas of the document too, Matthew.
Yeah, you can do it directly in Word, and then you save it as a PDF, and then it's in there as opposed to printing a PDF.
Yep.
That probably helps with keeping with if we with the out of orderness of it.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yep.
we, I'm guessing we'll end up with the body of it being in number order in case anybody's trying to have the current charter. So it makes sense. They can see the context of it easily.
I agree. As far as the report itself goes.
Okay. Okay, then starting here on, I guess, basically current page 10, each of these are going into the recommendations that we voted and approved. So this front section is looking at the approved recommendations. And we had a template where we have the title, we kind of explain the issue, have a listing of our findings. And I've pulled through, things that the subcommittees have done, where I had easy access to that in this section, and then kind of pull on down. And a section on viewpoints considered, which is where we're looking at potentially including, the comments received out of the open house, or maybe from the survey, as well as other, pros, cons that we have heard. Then a discussion of the recommendation. What I have tried to do, well, I guess, in most cases, I guess I'll have to make sure I've been consistent, is when we are inserting new proposed legal languages in italics and underlined. And then strikeout is used in those instances where we're proposing to strike out sections of the charter. I cannot guarantee that we've been consistent throughout the document, but we'll be striving toward that. And then we recount the voting and the priority levels, and then a section for member individual comments on each section if anybody wants to provide. So this is the template that we use throughout, and we won't talk about that any further. We'll just kind of look here at the content. Any other questions at this stage? We'll keep on moving, okay? Next section is the number and term, the words-based discussion. And again, for Kyle, please read through this. I pulled through, the findings here, and I think you had original draft, you'd kind of had a little bit of a narrative, and I put that into the findings approach template here. Make sure you're comfortable with that. Didn't change any of the content. Tried to squeeze up the tables to fit them in better. There's some pagination issues in this section because of the way word tables work. Maybe we'll be able to figure that out and get it tighter, this section. And then Kyle, we'll go back up a little bit. There. Yeah, right there. So here, then I return back to the narrative you provided in the discussion. And so that, I think that flows with the content that you submitted, I believe. Okay. Then the viewpoints in favor of a hybrid system, because that is what we voted, a majority voted in favor of. Viewpoints in favor, viewpoints against. The CRAB recommendation vote. Member comments have been submitted. Matthew has comments here. Matthew, I have not yet in this draft inserted your additional graph yet, but we'll do so. I have also inserted comments on hybrid in favor. And the chair has comments that are inserted dealing mostly with process and information.
When do you need when do you need comments by if people have more that they want to add now that they've seen it all together and all the parts are there?
If we are seeking to submit by October 17th, imagine
yeah, so the report can be printed that day. I would guess for enough time for you and us all to revise by the middle of next week at the very latest. So
okay, so we have a meeting scheduled for the 12th, so certainly
unless our submission date's going to change. If we're going to aim for the October 17th, then we'll have to lock things down like you said, at the latest the end of next week.
I think we're in shape for the 17th.
So I do plan to add a comment, but I just was really confused. This is great, but it's so much information. I do find it hard to process. So just to review, it feels like there's two sections of recommendations the way I read it, and then it confuses me. So it says the Charter Review Board voted to recommend a hybrid ward and at-large system, blah, blah, blah. And then the viewpoints for and against, and then the CRAB recommendation, take action to elect a portion of council members. And I don't know if it's just me, but that is confusing to me because we're recommending that the city council consider it in the election. Like this makes it sound like it's already set and they should just move forward. Does that make sense with how I'm reading it? I don't view this as let's put this as an amendment. I view this as do it. And no, we're saying it would be an amendment. So am I missing something and making it more complicated than it is? I get the point where it says we voted on it, but then the CRAB recommendation, I don't know, the wording just doesn't seem as consistent to me.
So you're taking issue with the wording, take action to elect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, because the action is to consider proposing an amendment for people to vote on,
Right.
not to go out and elect.
Yes, and I think both the chair's comment inserted and my comment inserted address the issue that, at least in my case, I support the idea of the hybrid. It needs more work.
Yeah.
I think in the drafting here, I think take action, I think is meant in a very general way. I'll defer to Mr. Klemp.
So would it be to be more consistent with everything else in here? There's a specific, like, let's look, I'm just gonna pick a random one.
Yeah, I was gonna ask too.
Yeah, do they all say the council
Number
votes for this
5.
and then this? I didn't catch that in the other.
Change, so the recommendation would be to change the current language, which reads for section 2.1. Oh, let me use this thing. The current language says the council shall consist of 6 council members and a mayor. Council members shall be elected at large for a term of 4 years. You would change the highlighted red language to shall be elected via a combination of wards-based and at large.
I'm not questioning that part at all.
No, that's what I'm. That would be the change of the language of the charter. Would be it wouldn't say shall be elected at large. It would say shall be elected both in a wards based.
If I can add to this,
Yes,
I don't
please.
know what Kyle has in the minutes, but I would encourage you to go back and look at the wording of the motion that you made, because that would be. I understand that there's probably some different viewpoints still, even though it was a majority vote to do that. Like, that is the language that you did vote on, and so from a legal point of view, that's the easiest way to represent that. I don't know if the mayor wants to highlight that.
Mhm.
And then I think within that, you're making a recommendation to the council to consider this change, right? That's the intent. If the language of the motion wasn't clear to that, I think you can easily scrivener that to be the point to which.
So I think that helps, but also maybe this helps too. I went back to the previous one,
Mhm.
the preamble, right? Preamble was all good. Everybody was in favor. But it just says viewpoints for and against and CRAB recommendation. And on this part 2, it's got like, we voted this and then it's for and against, and then this is the recommendation. It feels like it's duplicating on 2 and it wasn't duplicating on the first one. And that's where my brain got scrambled. So I do think the language could help, but it also feels like it's saying it twice in a slightly different way.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, if I just might make a comment, this is in my mind, the one place where you all are not making a specific recommendation.
Yeah.
You're making a recommendation to us to come up with a specific recommendation to go to voters. And so I think the language is going to be different no matter what.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if that take action to elect, if we put like the word pursue
Or consider
changing-
alternatives to
Right.
something like that, yeah. And I don't remember how we had that in the minutes back then.
Okay.
Well, sure.
No, good comments. We'll take note to address the language here on this take action. We'll finesse that. And to Melissa's comment about, or maybe it's Jennifer, I think the tables, charts kind of break up the content a little bit, and maybe I should pull that narrative all together in some way. Let me look at that, because I think there was some, you're pointing out some disconnect there with the way it flows.
Yeah,
Okay.
and some of them, like even just those 2 as an example for the whole rest of the document. The first one, not a lot to talk about, but so much more content and stuff to include on this one.
Yeah. And just with respect to the CRAB member comments, and just to keep interest of space and length and all that kind of in mind, if members want to join in a, sign on to somebody else's comments, feel free to do that. You don't have, but if you want to submit your own, that's fine too. On the compensation section, again, this goes into the findings. Provides the background information. Again, I've kind of struggled back and forth whether to put these tables in the back or leave them here. And this is true of the other tables, but for now, I've got them here within each issue area. The viewpoints considered. Much of this is drawn back from the poster boards that we pulled together. And then in this case, the recommendations here.
There's a typo there. It should be citizens with an apostrophe if that bullet's even necessary, the second to last bullet.
Yes, in the second, okay.
I question if we even need it, but it should have an apostrophe.
Good.
On the compensation part, I think when we were talking about the things considered, we had some of the topics for why we would want to increase the compensation, you know, so we could get people from all different ends of the income spectrum and everything, taking time off work, foregoing wages, promotions. I feel like we had a lot of conversation about people needing money for dependent care. So whether they needed, I would like to see that included in there as a reason for why we want to increase the
babysitter.
Oh wait, okay, I must have missed the word babysitter.
Second bullet in favor. I can
oh,
add that.
oh no, okay, no, I just must have been skimming too much. I apologize. Thank you, Eric.
No problem. But
wait,
dependent care is different than babysitter, so we can add some language.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to add babysitter and or dependent care? Or?
It feels a little more respectful to say dependent care because people might have elders they're caring for.
Okay.
Okay, I was looking in the wrong place. Okay, thank you.
From a staff perspective, I don't want to get into your back and forth, but the bullet about the adding to the deficit, I think that's could add to the deficit. It's not right.
Okay.
Well, also isn't there not a budget deficit?
There's not.
Yeah, I thought we had taken out the word deficit before.
I also thought we had taken out the part of the graph that showed the impact on the budget.
This one?
Oh, okay. You just have the percentage for reference. Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter, I guess, but you still have the table that has the 4 scenarios and we're recommending one.
Right. So yeah,
That's
I did pull that in from the old documents. I mean,
Less concerned to council than I am to the public, but
is there a desire that you mean to simplify it to just our proposal?
I think it should just be what we're proposing.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's a little confusing.
Is that here in this one?
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, just highlight the scenario C. Yeah, just highlight that for me. The scenario C, just highlight that, or you just wrote it off.
I wrote it down.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's fair. Good, thank you. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's citizens S apostrophe.
Yes. Yeah.
You didn't like the automatic correct that did?
It also doesn't like mayor, but you know.
Okay.
There's a couple typos in this next section too. I know the next one there, right there. So by is BV instead of by, and there's like a random double quote without a pair. Yeah, right. I don't know.
Period. Yeah.
Madam Chair, may we designate Ms. Finney for final proofing?
Yes, we may. Do we need to take a vote? I'll make the motion.
What I do.
No, this is good. Yeah, we need this. In this section, I did include the amendments that were not approved. And that was before I realized that, I think in the back toward the end of the document, Jeannie had included the kind of a recounting of all those. So I'll go back through. This may not be necessary here unless we think it provides some helpful context, which it may.
Yeah, I don't see that listed in the back section,
Is
but
it
it might
not?
make sense to move it there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because there is a section, this, things not approved, but
Yeah, it just says
but that may have been her
authorize the city
intent.
council.
Jeannie pulled that section together, and I think she was looking primarily at the separate standing items that were not addressed or not approved. And then this section, we start going through the council section items. Is this the 10 copies language? And then this section here is where we start dealing with the Article 4, Article 10 changes that we're proposing in terms of eliminating, Article 10. Have tried to simplify this and explain this in the best way possible. And then as you'll see, as we get on down through here, we are using the side-by-side comparison, which seemed to be maybe a better approach here so that people can see, here's what we're proposing to delete, and here's what it would be replaced by.
Before the table was another typo. We don't have to do it now. Fireman's the apostrophe's in the wrong spot again. But I like the table.
Okay.
Madam Chair and members, does everyone understand? So for background, and if you need for any context for anyone, that used to be a local pension that we ran. That was what that board was. And now we are in the loggers system. So there is still a pension. It's just not local.
Okay.
If you need for context for the public, that's what that board was. It's not a separate board to govern police and fire and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
It was a pension board.
That's good to note. Good to note. Don't think that came up in our discussions previously.
But that should be something that is added here, because I think anybody reading that will not, I did not understand that distinction. And I think that really makes it sort of a non-issue.
Okay, good point, Matthew. We'll put that together as a crab finding.
Just so the crab knows, it's completely closed here. So there's no old members or anything. The city has no local pension anymore. It's all in the loggers system.
And it's an operating and new members. I mean,
All go into
that.
there. Yep.
Okay,
So
there's no prohibitions or anything
Nope,
of that nature.
nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good addition, Matthew.
Yeah. If anybody wants to stop, they'll let us know. But
It's the same thing on the left, but if that's
actually, in this section here, perhaps I will add on the right side this mention of the logger system, and I'll, if I can, with city staff, kind of figure out the language to use for it appropriate. Because I think it'd be helpful to have it both in our findings as well as we pointed out here. Okay, I got some bold facing things to fix here, which we'll do. This is the finance section.
Typo space right there. After the comma right up there. Taxation, comma, and.
Got it.
Maybe just no comma.
I think the commas exist. I don't know if it exists in the,
Oh, okay.
not that commas are, I don't think it's all. I don't want to speak about how important commas are in
But-
the charter.
but-
So.
And we have a few
Right.
comma queens up
Right.
here.
We'll double check that against the charter language. Okay. Assess expenditure section. And this is the 45-day requirement on the audit process.
And so to add to your considerations, yes, the information about the county's not available and such, but also the state law requirement is 6 months after the end of the fiscal year is when the audit must be to the state auditor. So that, and the audit's oftentimes called the annual comprehensive financial report, same language, same word. But that is just another background for that. State law tells us when we have to have that in. So like everything you said there is true. We could not prepare it in 45 days. It takes about 65 days total to prepare it. So
Just stop there. Mayor Arnold, is there any, from the city council's perspective, are you able to address, are there any concerns about that 6-month language? Using that as a thank you.
I would just amend that, say one additional thing. One of the things that the law doesn't really fathom right now is how hard it is also to get municipal auditors. So my fear also is that in the change in audit government, the state's going to run, could run these problems. We have to set one.
In this public record aspect, contemporary information means. So even for some of these simple things, I tried to make sure I included a little bit of language explaining why we think it's needed. Certification of copies, again, this information sharing. Or deletion and changes of obsolete language. Parts dealing with the personnel versus human resources, name change. And then the related changes.
So this is one of the areas where you'll have italics and underlined.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, in this part here, this is not a consistent approach, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how you-
Mark that as a fix. we'll fix.
Because I think you want to show what's coming out, right?
Yeah.
The deletions and the.
Yep. Same through here.
That's for all of 7.
Yep.
I didn't do it though, right way.
Good thing I'm not typing this.
zeros and O again.
Mm-hmm.
How do you even see that?
How does that happen?
Because they're right next to each other.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
I know I have some comments I want to add to that, but I can just send them after the fact. Just like feedback from the open house that I wanted to make sure got in there.
For the Article 7 or
In Article 7.
Yeah, there were a couple, I didn't realize we were putting in every single comment, so I made a note to myself to add those too.
Oh, okay.
Well, and again, Jeannie had pulled those, I guess Jeannie pulled those in. And we're doing that just for the open house comments, but we're not doing that for the comments that were in the opinion survey, which is a larger volume of them.
There were a couple specific comments that I was going to add in, and Jeannie had added some of them in about like where the public was confused. And so that the council would just know like, oh, if you're going to do this, this might be a term you need to explain. Like that was the kind of comment I was trying to add. Not necessarily every single comment ever, but
why are we including some comments on the report and not others? Because at the end of it, we're linking everything anyway, aren't we?
Yes, we will.
Oh, there's a link to the open house stuff too, I guess.
Yeah, well, we'll include a link or a PDF of the compilation of those.
The reason I was noticing the ones in particular was it seemed like fairly simple things to like highlight in the midst of a ton of data, but you're right, if it's inconsistent, we don't have to do it that way.
It does seem inconsistent, and I don't know. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, are those
again
why we voted that? Are we only using comments that support our recommendations, or
no? I mean, there's comments that are included that are in opposition to how we voted. In many cases, I guess what at least my intent was, and I don't know what the chair's intent was, but my intent was to at least show that we have listened and we are aware that there are other viewpoints on these topics.
One example for me was the thing about 24 hours. People got really upset at the open house about it being 24 hours. And we're like, we weren't changing that. That's been there. Like it has to be that way. And that's the part people got upset about. So I was just hoping that in this document, we mentioned to council, oh, if you're going to make any edit to this, be aware the 24 hours is going to throw people off. They're going to vote against it because of something that isn't even being changed.
Right.
So more that.
Well, and that sounds more like explanation of the fireman's department fund.
True.
But as far as just pulling in the comments and including them as part of our presentation, it seems weird. I mean, it seems like it's just random.
Yeah.
Or duplicative if it's going to be an attachment.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're making all of the comments from everything available at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, especially if we take viewpoint, I mean, if we take the viewpoints out, yeah, I mean, and the intent is, yes, to have PDFs accessing the complete list of comments for the survey and from the open house.
I guess it does feel duplicative because, again, in the beginning, we're saying we did all of these things. So we know they exist from the get-go. So we're including them again, then we're linking them again. It just seems like maybe that's part of the page count.
That would save space.
And I'm not saying that a 40-page report is a bad thing. I'm just, it does feel like it's
redundant. There's a redundancy
and also random. It's not in every section. And so.
That's true, because we say right up front, we received a lot of community input.
Right. And we put how many people came to the event. Yeah. How many people answered the survey. We put answers. We're including all of those things. So it does feel very repetitive.
Okay. I'm comfortable with taking them out.
Matthew's got a.
So I would like to argue on the other side of that, because to make it easier for the reader, having those positive and negative comments right there, make it clear to them. And when I did a section, I just put all of the comments that we had related to those boards in there. Because that's easier for the reader to sort of look at, while they can go look at that complete thing, that becomes more of a pain in the ass. And they are unlikely to do that in a way that makes it contextual, the way that having them in there does. So that would be my suggestion.
I think I would would agree with that more, Matthew, if the audience was more the general public and we wanted to make it easier for them, but this is directed to the council, and I'm confident they're gonna read all of the attachments, especially citizen input. But I mean, that's my perspective.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nicole, because I feel like, again, these are our recommendations. Yes, we heard what the community said, but we're still recommending it, you know, again, if we're including opposition to it, we still recommended it anyway. So again, the council has the opportunity to read all of that, but I just feel like it's, I don't know, I would oppose it.
I agree with Melissa. I have nothing more to add.
Okay, I guess there are certain topics like in the upfront where we talk about the ward issue, and we have some pros and cons, because that's talking about the topic in a little more academic sense. But I do hear that that this does take up space in the viewpoints section, and it is redundant.
What are you referencing in that section though? Because I do feel like that's maybe a little bit different.
It is different.
Yeah, and I do think that is.
It's more of the arguments in favor of the topic as opposed to community viewpoints, which is what most of the sections.
I mean, it's definitely different. And especially on that particular item that we voted on 5-4, it makes sense that there will be a lot of comments on it of ours. I haven't really.
And we do run, I mean, the risk we include as we're realizing in the drafting of this, that we're not including, if we don't include all the comments, we're leaving somebody out or some topic out. So maybe it's.
I mean, I definitely think all of our comments should be heard. I just don't think all of the communities should be inserted into the presentation.
There was like also, yes, like there's a lot of like extra words that could maybe, just be cutbacks. The ones that are just more minor, at least.
Okay. I'm comfortable taking it out.
I'd be in favor of that, since we have the whole thing in the back.
Yep. Okay, Matthew.
Yeah, I'll go with the majority, but it'd be nice then to have links to those particular sets of questions for each of, or the responses for each of those things, if we're going to include those comments.
Okay, let me look at how we can hyperlink and make it easy for people to see the views.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Rest of Article 7.
I just had a quick question, Joe and Madam Chair and members. Does anyone need any understanding of classified, unclassified? I'm sure we've talked about enough. You may all understand it, but did we need any language there or help understanding where that comes from?
That was the specific comment that I was going to add.
Yeah.
So it's a very, it's obviously it's a long-standing issue, but for you all, the classified service is much like the civil service system. So if you take a merit system, that's our system, you just implant civil service, a classified service member, most of the employees of the city have a protection right to appeal disciplinary actions and terminations or actions on their employment to the Personnel Review Board, or now the Human Resources Board. And so that's the classified service. And the charter gives them that kind of employment protection. The unclassified service are usually the directors, those that we would consider exempt. The change you're making here is that there was very specific positions, and of course, fair labor standards and the determinations of overtime and exempt and non-exempt have come out of line with the classified and unclassified. So what you've done here is said, if fair labor standard says you're exempt or non-exempt, you're now you're unclassified or classified, and lined it up with the federal law.
Do you think people understand exempt and non-exempt, like if we referred, so not even that?
I mean, if the council does choose to send this to the voters, this is one we would have to get a little primer on the merit system together and such.
And full disclosure, I voted no on it for that reason.
Okay, so what I'll try to
wait, hold on. Go ahead. Not according to this.
Yes, I did.
Am I looking at the wrong one?
Oh, did I not? Oh,
wrong? Did you vote or is this
Make
wrong?
sure we got it correct.
Let's look at the minutes.
I thought that was the one I voted
I
on.
thought in talking with Neil, that was one of those ones, like you're out of compliance with the federal.
Yeah,
Maybe
have
he
to
talked
do
me into voting yes for that reason.
So it has to happen, but it will need some clarification, or voters will vote against
sorry.
it.
Because they'll be confused about
You
it
did
because
vote no.
they don't really understand it.
She did. Yeah, you did vote no.
The votes have been doctored now.
Correct. Put a notation by that, so fix that.
Good memory. I don't remember what I voted in.
I was the only no vote on a few things.
I know.
I'll go back through and pull some of this language that Eric's suggesting into that I think there does need to be a little bit better description of this, the issues involved.
Maybe it was this one. Okay. But she says she voted no. This says she voted no. She voted no.
That's my mistake.
Secretary, he's here.
It was a very Ramsey's moment, so let it be written.
Okay. Okay, let's keep on going through here. This is more of the service language. So this is all the discrimination language. I'll change that into the formatting. Eric, if you could mark just format that section, and that it'll be that whole paragraph. I'll go back to do that. And to that point, double check on the voting here. I mean, I copy pasted stuff, so please do check, make sure I've done it correctly. And prohibitions or the discrimination language cleanup. Okay.
This is another one where service also threw people off. It was not as bad as classified service, but it's the same wording issue here in this section with classified service and service. So just your explanation might need to be added to this one too.
Well, but here we're
The added service there.
This is, and I think Paul Dribbin at one point even raised a question about this. I mean, are we talking about military service?
I just,
that was a community comment as well.
and yeah, I'm just saying it as a community comment. I'm not even saying what the answer is. I'm just saying this is another one the community will say, what? So we may need to clarify. And that can, I don't think we even have to, I mean, just for the council, I would just point that out.
Do we recall where we pulled this language from? I have to go back to the record.
That didn't get questioned, but it's a good point.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, it could be anything.
Well,
wait, we copied all this from the model charter, didn't we? I think that's model charter language. I didn't bring it with me.
Yeah,
but that's what I thought.
I got it right.
Kyle's got it too.
Oh, the model? Yeah, I just don't know where in the world.
I know.
Be
buried somewhere.
General provisions. We'll start there. Come back to me.
Well, and that could be something we look later and check too. We don't have to do it right now.
Yeah, we don't have to do it right now, but could someone take that as an action item to just run down and see the service?
I have it.
Source.
No person, the model charter reads, no person shall be appointed, removed, race, gender, age, sexual orientation, disability, religion, country of origin, or political affiliation.
Oh, so no.
So where did we get that?
So in general, and I don't want to speak for a lawyer, you may want to check this when you look. You rarely see military service in the prohibited classes. Think of it that way, right? In what ways can we not discriminate against a person? And then we add these words, right? That's where race and sex and gender and orientation have come up. You rarely see service, if at all. So I just go and find some non-discrimination clauses, and you will rarely see it. Now, I'm not saying change your report, but you may need to describe that because that's sort of a non-traditional thing you're seeing in those lists.
Yeah, I think we may need to go back to the record and when we discussed this section way back when.
So, and I should know this because I wrote it down, amended by interlineation. Anybody remember what that means?
Essentially means you had unanimous consent to throw the word in.
So, okay, that's by Jeannie. So someone needs to ask Jeannie why she added that word.
Because it's copied from a previous, I think it's copied from what we said previous, trying to use the same language somewhere else.
Oh wait, no, I think the interlineation was like a comma because the piece of paper says exactly what that says. So it disregard my comment.
Yeah, there was a whole argument about commas and or.
This group and the commas.
So the service question, when you look here at the number 1 in the current charter, it says no question in any test shall relate to political or religious opinion, affiliations, or service. And so the point being is the question there on the merit test, that if we have to give a test, can't ask about your military service. And I think as you all were looking at it, you took this service, which exists, and then said, do we need to put that in the prohibition list, right? That's where you've now moved it from we can't ask something on the test into this is a protected class. And again, not doubting your recommendation, just giving you a sense of the difference there.
Anyway, I think the main thing is to highlight it may be a confusion. That's all we have to do potentially.
Okay.
Oh, that's what, okay. I would recommend removing it.
Should we make a motion?
Should I?
We have a
move
quorum.
Do we have?
I move to remove service and affiliations. Right? Because we're essentially saying a protected class.
Affiliations exist now, just so you.
It does.
Yes.
It does exist.
So
Okay.
just.
Well, then just service.
So it's sort of a catch-all.
But
again, service was because
but
it was
service
mentioned
exists
before.
too
Service exists in the test section.
in the test section.
About what this is saying here.
Well, it's also there, right? It's not red in this one, so it must have been there. And we felt
No, it's red here. So when
It's
you look at the
not
current
seven.
prohibitions, the service is not included.
Yeah, so I wonder if the original didn't have.
7.7 does originally have it.
Correct.
And so that's
In terms
that's
of
why
the
we made
test.
that decision was because let's just be
It seemed
fun.
weird to put all the new ones in for test and not for prohibition. But
they're
yeah, if
different
you
things.
okay, if it doesn't need to be there, then we didn't understand.
Yeah, I agree. I think we were.
by the same. Is income really a protected class?
Usually it said socioeconomic status, so
Okay.
I'm not sure where the word income comes in, but. You're a political scientist, so if you need to correct me in any way, let me know.
Well,
I mean, the other thing is, the council, if they're gonna do this, they're gonna be looking at this, they're gonna have same thoughts. They've got the comments from people questioning service. Laura was here, she might say, oh, we might change this socioeconomic. We could show up at a meeting. You know, other council members might say, this looks goofy. We're gonna do it differently. They can do it.
do we make the prohibitions just mirror the model city charter? Race, gender, age, sexual orientation, disability, religion, country of origin, political affiliation.
I'll be difficult and say I really like gender identity being added, which is what we did.
So how's that referenced in the model?
In the model, it just says gender, not gender identity.
Oh, it does say, well, yeah, because gender identity is different, I would say.
Mhm.
And that's just kind of a newer term. So I think that's where the model city charter is a little behind.
But are you so gender and gender identity, or just have a gender identity?
I'm happy with what it says now, which is gender
Okay.
identity.
So we could adopt.
I just
the
think
model
I just think
language, but
income is
gender
weird.
Again, we're being nitpicky, but yeah. You know,
To summarize your
political climate, I'm a little worried about gender identity.
Oh, I'm not saying we shouldn't say that. I'm just saying, do you want to just leave this the way it is, or do we want to update the whole thing to use the model language, but instead of their word gender, we say gender?
Yeah, I don't know.
Nicole, could you speak into your microphone?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Matthew. I was asking.
Actually, turn it on too, I think.
Does my hair look all right?
Thank you.
I was asking for clarification on whether Jennifer was suggesting that we leave the whole thing in as we have it that includes the phrase gender identity, or whether she was suggesting, or she was just adding on to, yeah, let's go with the model language, but expand gender to gender identity.
And I'm just not sure. I wasn't ready to like change all this tonight, so my brain's not quite in the space.
Also, it currently says race twice. Does it not?
Oh, it sure does. Yeah.
We really did not pay attention, guys.
And creed is religious opinion. I mean,
Well,
sort of religious
At
opinion.
this point, would it be best to just make a note of this is the idea? Maybe the council needs to just like come up with this on their own.
We're all
No, I
here.
don't
We
think
can still
so. I
vote.
think
We should
we
just
need to
fix it.
fix
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. I agree.
So Melissa has a motion, but I think we've gone a
But
way
yeah,
different way.
it's-
Would you
needs
like to
more.
pull it back? I don't know. if you do
I
that.
will withdraw my
Okay.
previous motion. Is that okay?
What is the model?
The model city charter says race, gender, age, sexual orientation, disability, religion, country of origin, or political affiliation. Your suggestion, if I'm understanding it correctly, would be instead of just gender, place gender with gender identity.
Or is it more proper to say gender or gender identity or gender expression or whatever?
I'm not sure. Maybe we just go with gender and lose it. I don't know. Well, Melissa liked it when I said gender identity, but I don't know what you said.
No, I like that. I think it should
So is it
stay.
instead of gender or in addition?
I think,
I think we want to say, yeah, probably maybe gender and gender identity.
Same both.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds
that,
good.
that's
Yeah.
all right.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to replace from after because and until the period in that sentence, replace that with race, gender, gender identity, age, sexual orientation, disability, religion, country of origin, or political affiliation. End of sentence.
I'll second.
I don't write that down.
Yeah, write it.
I
First
was
is
gonna say, I
me.
need to see it. Can I hear it again?
Can we write it?
Do you
I
want to pass
feel
the
like,
page around maybe? Or can
disability
we-
wasn't in there.
You can read my.
Disability was absolutely in there.
This is
Was,
the-
okay.
yes.
Yeah, just
Income-
tell me what page it's
Does
on,
anybody
I'll
have
read
it?
it.
Because if they have it, it's on page 62 of the model city
Okay,
chart.
I've got it.
Income and socioeconomic were not in there. I don't know about physical appearance. I don't know that we need that. I don't know about marital status. I don't know that we need
Talk
that.
about that. It seems like that would be something we must have wanted in there.
That's where I thought we got it from the model city charter. I don't know where this came from otherwise. Was this from you, Matthew? Did you come up with these words? No? Okay.
I think Neil drafted these, if I'm correct.
I'll go with Neil.
Oh,
Okay, I like that. Let's say it with me.
You know, here.
There is a case to be made when you talk about protected classes, about physical appearance, right? And certainly the biases that come into that, income or socioeconomic status as well. So, I mean, you can certainly, whatever you add and his recommendation to council, but again, you're putting protected classes in. That's what you're really doing with the city. We cannot discriminate on these bases. And if someone proves it, then we've violated it. So.
I'd be in favor of shorter yet more somehow shorter and comprehensive. I feel like the model charter includes all of that without giving anybody who thinks we didn't hire them because of their tattoos or their piercings or something.
And if we say this and we all vote, we like this change, Neil's still gonna go and correct the council when they do it to what he thinks it has to be.
Neil can make a recommendation. I don't
Yeah.
know what his thinking was in the wording.
So yeah, we should just go with it.
Okay.
so the
What you-
amendment
what you
as
said.
is,
Yeah.
which I will repeat, is just the list of things: race, gender, gender identity, age, sexual orientation, disability, religion, country of origin, or political affiliation. Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Is
Are we
there
gonna
any
vote
further
again?
discussion? Oh, boy.
And that drops disability?
Sorry,
No, disability was in there.
Okay.
it's between orientation and religion.
It just switched spots.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Just to remain
Oh, wait.
consistent, we should do
Yeah, we should do roll
a
call. Yep.
recorded vote.
Oh.
Okay, so I'll just go in order of who's in front of me. Melissa Johnson.
Yay. What am I?
Yes or no? We're out of practice. Benny.
What about, okay, we're voting to
Aye.
replace
Yes.
Yes, aye.
We're voting on your motion.
Correct.
Okay.
That's you second.
Ms. Chaput,
Yes.
Mr. Klemp, aye. Mr. Dugan
Yes.
and Mr. Heil.
Yes.
That is a bunch of yeses, all yeses, 6 yeses, no
Okay.
nos.
Motion is approved.
What are we doing with priority?
We are gonna do it again.
Okay.
Oh, do we have to, we already prioritized the overall thing. Do we have to prioritize?
I don't think we
that?
have to do that again. Do we? I'll say, my vote is no.
The numbers will line up.
It's the same, it's the
All right.
same concept.
There's only,
Was 8 to
that's
1.
9.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I forgot
in,
about
in
that.
order to remain, because I
Yeah,
think we should
guess we should.
prioritize.
I was forgetting about that
Okay.
part.
All right,
Yep.
so raise your hand for high. That's everybody. Made it easy on me, and
Nothing.
nobody else is here. Sorry.
I'm just scrolling up to you now to be difficult.
Yeah.
Go back to the test section that we looked at. That now reads different than what I think you just adopted.
Sorry, what?
The test, on testing. So this is Article 7.7.
Oh, okay, yes.
The previous issue where we had added that list in. That list there is now different than the list that you just adopted as a recommendation.
You're not wrong.
But that one already had service, which is what caused the problem in the first place.
That's correct. So I'm asking you, do you want to go to the list? Do you want to have the same list in the test? What we have to put in the test and not put in the test is the prohibited acts. My thought is that you probably do have that same list, but that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. So.
But it still has to have service in that case.
It does, I can say whatever we want, but
Does not have to have service.
I mean,
You can. I'm not saying you have to do anything. I'm just pointing out you have different lists. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does the city, I know, I'm just thinking of slogans, the ban the box thing.
Mhm.
Does the city do that?
So we ask if it's related. We have not banned the box, so that is asked.
And that's an action we could take here.
Sure, good. There are certain tests that require it regardless. So there's Missouri law about police officers.
Mhm.
We can't ban the box for certain action, for certain employment. Ban the box for everyone who doesn't know means, do you ask about any arrest or conviction on the application, or do you wait till farther on in the process of employment consideration?
Which was a community comment.
Oh, it was. I feel like when we were doing these words, we were just trying to be consistent and cover everything. And so as much as I love the ban the box thing, like that's a whole different direction than we were already going. That's like introducing a whole new thing at this point.
I agree with this. I mean, this is where it would exist. And yes, not everyone is here, but that we are still a body that can make decisions because we have a quorum.
So are we saying that we want to conform this to be consistent with what we just did?
And then I threw in another idea, which may or may not have been smart at.
I would say, if I may, I disagree. I don't think they have to be the same because they're not relative. One is about tests and the other is essentially about discriminating. So those are two different things. They don't need to be the same list. However, I do think service is confusing there too. And I like adding what you just brought up, so.
Well, we can make it consistent if that's what we think makes sense. And then obviously the council, Neil might have some input for them for why you don't have to, why some of these should come out on in one place or the other. That just from an employment law perspective, we're unfamiliar with.
Madam Chair, I think maybe I figured out where this came from.
Oh,
I think
boy.
Neil took what is in our city DEI statement that wasn't
you're right,
lifted
yes.
and added it into here.
I think you're right.
Because physical appearance is there, gender identity is also there. We actually refer to ability rather than disability, but I think it was trying to make those two things meld together.
Now that you say that, I remember.
So now we regret our vote.
The DEI statement can be.
Yeah,
broader than
I don't,
The chart.
I think, yeah, that's okay too. I'm okay with those two things being inconsistent.
I was just trying to solve the mystery.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mission accomplished. Miss Marple.
Sounds like we'll move on.
Well,
So, do we want another motion for this one?
are you like, what are you suggesting a motion for? Like a motion for the test to not ask for criminal history or something?
No,
Oh,
I was
motion
gonna
to move
say
on.
a motion to make the same changes to this that we made in 7.7 or whatever it was.
That is to use the model language.
With the
in
insertion
other
of-
section.
Mhm.
Removing affiliation. So removing everything from shall relate. There should be a 2. From relate until period, and just replace it with exactly what we just said.
Yes, yes. Is that what we're saying? That we want those two things to be consistent?
No,
And then we could add you can't ask about arrest history, whatever, what's the right word?
I have a concern about adding in other language without
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
having further discussion and staff involvement.
You're okay with making them consistent, but not adding anything about criminal records?
I'm okay with using the consistency of the model language myself.
I feel this. I agree with that. Is that a motion, Joe?
seems like you're vague, but why is the concern about like just because we haven't considered it enough, or what explain, please,
On
why not to consider adding it?
we haven't
Adding the criminal history.
history. We've had no discussion on that topic.
I agree. Even though we have the authority to do that, it doesn't feel. It's not something that has to be decided tonight. I would rather have the input from the entire group before we do something.
And could that be a crowd member comment?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Let's do
Yeah.
that.
Put it in the comment.
Yeah.
You can encourage the council to do that through comments.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Finally have a reason to put a comment.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I move to make the language in this section the same as the language in the next section with the same wording from the model charter. Sorry, words are hard.
Okay, so we're moving everything after the word relate to the end of the sentence and
Yes.
putting in the same verbiage from the whatever section that was.
7.12.
Lost.
Yes, that's a better
Yes.
description.
Wait, you made the motion.
I
Okay,
said
no
I-
one seconded it.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
And just to clarify, we're talking about in doing this in the prior section
7.71.
7.71.
Yes.
And that would be inserted into right after no question in any test shall relate
Yep.
to
And then
Put it
race
over two.
to the
Okay.
list.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. I'm sorry, roll call.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Vice President or whatever, Vice Chair, I'm the secretary. Miss Johnson.
I'm gonna say no.
Thank you. Miss Finney,
Yes.
Miss Chaput,
Yes.
Mr. Klemp, aye, Mr. Dugan,
yes.
and Mr. Heil.
Yes.
Thank you. 5-1. And then raise your hand if you think this is a high priority. Thank you. And a medium priority. And a low priority. Thank you.
We need to do that again for, did we do the priority? Oh, no, we
Yes,
did
we
the
did.
priority on
Yep,
the other.
everybody
That's right.
said they love it.
All right.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Okay, we need to leave that section.
Okay.
All right, let's move on.
Moving on.
Okay, Article 9, the judge, municipal judge, residency topic. Straightforward. It's the planning and zoning change here.
I'm sorry. Can I stop someone?
Yeah.
I don't remember where we were, but there was a typo and it said Webster Grover's up by, gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't bring it up because we were deep in discussion.
Up by this.
Can you just
down here.
Control F Grover's?
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
search for
right
it.
here.
Oh, good eye.
Because we changed it in another document, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll let you know if there are any more O's that are zeros. We all got our thing.
I'm gonna tell you where my name is wrong.
We're planning and development.
There we
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, and then in here we start into the initiative petition signature topic. Oh, wait, I guess this is before that.
This is the elections.
This is the elections. Okay. Yep.
So if I could just go back to the prior discussion on viewpoints considered. Like this just feels irrelevant here. to me.
Right. Yeah. I based on what our prior discussion, we'll take these out.
We are going to take them all out.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the section now where my name has changed, so if we can repair my name in the following votes, that would be great.
And where does that occur?
In 14.1, there's just an L instead of an N. 14.1, 14.2,
Okay.
somehow at this point my name changed for the rest of the document.
To Finley.
Yeah.
Finley.
Oh, sorry.
So that could just be a search copy paste. It's easy, but there's a bunch of them.
We'll go this way. Get ahead of you all.
Yep. On this section here, we're got right now the title's wording correction to 14.1. That this is dealing with, if the city council decides not to move forward with the registered voters approach, then at least clean up ballots cast, votes cast. Wording correction may not be the right term.
Like alternate?
Alternate, maybe. I'll play with the.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Alternate. Yeah.
More mark capitalization.
That looks good. And more of the technical cleanup with that voting, the ballot issue with the election board. Now here's public engagement. I will make a comment that we'll read through this and make sure that, the arguments that you want to have put forward here are here. This was a fairly short, I mean, I didn't have much to work with in terms of, of documentation. If you want more discussion of, the rationale for and the need, particularly in the upfront. And then the rest of this is just including the language, that a majority approved.
I thought it was fine. Minus my name.
And just as a heads up to the membership, I do plan to make a member comment on this section, making the argument that this is something, most of which should be handled by the city council in terms of policy.
I'm on there as voting no, and yes, and I voted yes.
On which?
Actually, I might have to go back and actually read what that all is.
This was
Don't wanna
number,
make two
this was
votes.
the third one.
I gotta go figure out how I voted.
The third one, principles of public engagement.
Because wasn't that one we had it broken out into 3 different sections and we voted on them separately?
The third one, yes.
Out of 4? Oh no, there's a substitute. Okay.
And Eric, my name is spelled wrong on there. There's 2
Johnson
L's.
voted yes, yes, and no.
There's,
For the principles of
maybe
Okay.
it's already been
public
corrected.
engagement. Is that
I have an
or-
old version.
Is that
Or 2 L's.
Yeah,
right? Okay.
that sounds right.
So you voted no on this one, the principles?
I think so. I think you talked me into that, Joe. I trust what Kyle has.
Oh yeah, there. I was halfway correct.
Say both. Yeah, sure.
Okay, it was, before we move into this, that completes the section, at least to my knowledge, of the amendments that we approved.
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Matthew Heil's name is wrong right there where the cursor is.
Good. Thank you. Jeannie had then pulled in this section here, and I did a quick, and I have not done a whole lot of editing to this section, but it was kind of a recapping of the items that we either did not approve by vote or did not take up as a vote and move forward as a priority. If you see anything in this section that you disagree with or anything that we've overlooked, please let me know.
Can I just throw out, and if no one agrees with me, then I'll be quiet, but is it really helpful to include things that we didn't consider? I think it's confusing to the reader. I mean, the whole point of our being is to recommend things, not say things we don't recommend.
I agree 100%.
So for those items that city staff or perhaps city council members had recommended we look at in terms of that initial set of priorities, do we not want to say how we disposed of those topics?
They didn't have to do it.
I mean, they could draw the inference that we didn't find it on our list of priorities.
If we're trying to shorten it,
I mean,
and
we had 28.
like throughout this, I know that everybody wants to have comments. I know that everybody wants to include public engagement and stuff, but like, I don't feel like this is a super strong document if we kneecap every single thing that we do.
I also feel like, I don't know, if there's a specific length that we're worried about, then yes, let's cut it. But if it's at the end of the document and like, this is just here for your information, like, does it hurt?
Are we in the addendum at this point?
Well, not again, we have not formally organized the document yet, but yes, the section could be addendum.
Yeah,
so
that's
that
true.
it's still there, but it's not
Yeah.
the main part of the document.
I do think the chair, Ms. Kirkton, does want to create a good historical document that, shows how this body, dealt with the issues throughout the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
feel
can
like
see
that's
that.
more applicable in an addendum or exhibit or something as opposed to within the actual recommendations.
Because obviously it's not recommendations.
Right.
So that,
and
yes,
to Kyle's
makes
point,
sense.
it does kind of weaken our argument when we show, oh, here's all these negative comments that we got about this. Or here's opposition to this.
Madam Chair and members, I noticed when I was reading this, you had obviously I'll just use this one, legislative proceedings. It was a staff recommendation. Term limits, I'm not sure where they came from. You didn't pursue it, but should we denote where it came from if you didn't take a vote? All the other ones are denoted that either staff recommendations or members. I'm not sure where term limits came from if I remember, so.
Madam Chair, the look at term limits came from 2 council members.
Okay. So
I'm not going to name them because I might get it wrong. I know one of them for certain, but not the others, but that's in that chart.
It is, sorry to interrupt. There is a section in the 2.1 section that says the charter, it already says that we did not consider term limits and do not favor adding
oh yeah,
them.
that's true.
So I don't think that that's
Fine.
necessary.
Yeah.
Or it is, I don't.
Yeah, this is a case of redundancy here.
Yeah.
So maybe take that one out.
So I could take that out at this section and not. But the topic is dealt with elsewhere, yeah.
What section number was that? I'm kind of trying to find my place because I was thinking,
Current charter
what?
of the current charter
Yeah.
should be 2.1.
2.1. Okay. I'm struggling today. Okay. Yeah, I see. That's what we're saying. Yeah, I'm okay with taking it off the second part then. G.
Which, what are you referring to?
That right there.
One here.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes.
Yeah. So do we have a strong sentiment that we want to make that part an exhibit rather than leaving it where it is? Leaving it as a part of the recommendation?
If not, remove it to at least make it an addendum would be a way to cut the baby in half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a strong opinion about it. So do we want to vote or do we just wanna, I don't think it really needs a vote. Yeah. Okay. So
not a policy
just
issue.
leave it. Yeah. Okay.
Just that attorney. It's a joke.
Okay.
Not to confuse your formatting, and Joe, I'm looking at you. There was a couple that we said you referred to the council for consideration. You took no action. And some things you just didn't pass at all. I didn't know if there's a difference there, if that's 2 different addendums, right? I mean, you gave some weight to say, council, you should look at this. It's not our recommendation, but you should look at this. But then some of them you just defeated.
I think there were different categories for that.
Yeah, I think the chair was kind of keeping a running list of categories on that of items that
I just noticed like this one, obviously like initiative, but then if you scroll up like here, legislative proceedings,
yeah,
you didn't consider, it wasn't a priority, but you do say for council consideration. So I didn't know if there was a difference there in where your placement goes.
I'll have to look back at that. This was what was submitted to me by the chair. So I'll look back through that language.
It does seem that they should be separated because they are 2 different. I mean, one of them we obviously cared enough to vote and the others we didn't even bring to a vote. So to lump them all together here feels just a little inconsistent, I guess.
Okay, thank you. And then a placeholder, if members want to make any kind of general comments that are not specific to a specific vote or section. And then the addendum section, which is basically everything in the kitchen sink. I will, over the next week and into the weekend, we'll be compiling the list of addendum items. I will share that back out with the members and with our liaisons here. try to organize those into, you know, some semblance of a structure, so that you're aware of that, as well as providing a new update of this master draft of the report itself.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Good job.
Wonderful job.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, the next item on our agenda, submission of any member remarks. I think we talked about that. We want those by the middle of next week.
Should we put a finer point on that of the 11th?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful to
Sure.
midnight on the 11th or
Call
5
it
o'clock.
business.
I'm fine with midnight.
I just, as long as you
Some
give
of
it-
us, some of us
11?
work late into the night.
Central time, Mrs.
Yes.
Finley.
Is that the 11? Is that what you said?
Like midnight on.
The 11th.
Oh.
Would you rather have
the
the
11th.
10th to give you the 11th to get it ready?
11:59, 10:11 or
Sunday
midnight?
night.
We have a meeting on the 12th.
You want Monday night?
Are we meeting on the 12th?
Well, we have a meeting scheduled. I guess
Yep.
that's, well,
I can't attend.
we're
but-
jumping ahead on the agenda there, but we have it scheduled if we need it.
11:59 p.m. on October 11th.
Yes.
Well, that's true. Oh, yeah, that's
Right.
true. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. So
So
we'll,
between 11:59 p.m. and then the next day, do we need an earlier deadline?
yes.
yeah.
Earlier would be better. Maybe
Let's
Monday?
Saturday.
just say Friday. You want to work on it this weekend, right?
I have to, yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean,
then
I
Friday.
So Friday, this Friday.
Yeah.
At
Friday.
at 4:59.
Friday, close of business, 5 o'clock
COB.
PM Central Time.
So it's 10-6 this week.
And 6, 4:59 p.m. CDT. Should I mean,
And then
give him an extra.
if we're gonna vote on it, I mean, I won't make it to the meeting anyway, so it doesn't actually matter. But like when they get sent out today, I'm working, I can't read it. So if you want us to review something for that meeting, I have to have it, I don't know, 24 hours in advance to have any chance. It probably won't matter for me because I won't be here anyway, but can we get a final one? If we're gonna vote, can we get a final one 24 hours ahead to review?
Wouldn't it have to be 24 hours anyway? Sunshine?
No, that's
No.
true.
Well, the issue has to be presented. So the agenda will show that we're taking up that
But
issue.
the
but the
document
language,
doesn't have to.
yeah.
Yeah, because we keep sending documents to Deb, which I get, but I can't read because I'm working.
We can also look at the calendar if you want, if we need in that week to call another quick meeting for actual formal adoption. We can
Mhm.
look at that.
And do it
So,
remotely.
True.
I know finding dates are tough for everyone, but just putting that option out there.
Okay, but we think everybody can get their comments in by this Friday at a certain time.
4:59 exactly.
And then, Joe, that gives you time to turn it around, hopefully give us a day to look at it.
Right.
And then we vote on the 12th. Okay. Next topic is old business, discussion of future charter review member obligations. There was some conversation last week about how the council might want to draw upon our experience for council meetings perhaps, or community outreach meetings, something like that. So I guess my question to you, Laura, is can we just all agree to do that, or do our appointments have to be extended a year if we're going to be participating in an official capacity or whatever?
So your appointments don't need to be extended because they end whenever we say they end.
Oh, okay.
I know
Okay.
that
I wasn't-
sounds terrible.
I know we had
but-
talked about it being a year, but I couldn't remember if
Yeah.
the official appointment was a 12.
So no, we don't need to formally extend them. What I hope to have us do on the 17th is plot out the plan for council to review the amendments and how we do this, keeping in mind that I do not believe there's a single council member who wants to try and get all this done in order to send this to the ballot in April. We just don't have enough time to be true to the work that you all have done. So we'll have a proposed schedule. And then I think in terms of, leveraging the expertise that you all have developed over time and had coming into this, we'll then have ideas like, for example, since, the subcommittee, like Kyle, you were the head of the subcommittee on the kind of system you know, when we know we're going to talk about that, we might ask you to be at the meeting, but we aren't going to necessarily need everyone all the time. That seems like we're asking you to do the same job twice, and now it's our turn to really dig in. The other thing is that we may, during the course of our discussions, have questions that come up and people say, well, what did so-and-so think? That doesn't matter what individuals think necessarily, but we also want you to be available if there are council members who have questions. For example, if you voted no on something and somebody wants to know why you voted no on that, they may want to be able to call you and ask you that question. And if you're open to that, I think we can do that. And as I said, I think I said this the last time, the biggest issue will be if the council chooses to move forward in putting together a proposal for a hybrid system, we're going to need some help putting together that proposal. And again, that'll likely be on a voluntary basis. We can't hold you all to that process. I at least I don't feel like we should. But some of you might volunteer.
Do you need us to volunteer now or just by the time? Okay.
Let me, so really right now I have a proposal for how council will attack these recommendations, and I need council to actually approve that. Because again, I don't get to dictate what exactly happens. The world would be simpler, but maybe not better.
All right. Is there any further discussion on that, or we're all clear on the request? Okay. Consider agenda items for the next meeting. I think we have one agenda item to finally vote. To have our final vote. Future meeting date, October 12th. Anything further from the committee members?
So we don't plan to do any meetings after next week. That doesn't mean we're not involved in anything, but we don't have any more meetings.
We should get a cake.
Good.
Here.
Oh, we should not get a cake.
No,
Can I?
Yeah.
Are we still recording?
We're still in meeting.
We're still in meeting. I guess I can do this in the meeting. I really was serious. I'm going to invite you all to my house at some point with whoever you want. Well, I shouldn't say whoever you want to bring, because who knows how many people you decide to bring, but we will find a way, even though we're not freeing you entirely, we will find a way to celebrate the time commitment that you've given to us and let you all know each other outside of these discussions a little bit. So we'll do something, I promise.
With appropriate legal public notice.
I'll bring a cake.
We will not actually we're going to have to forbid the discussion of the charter at all during the course of this particular meeting. So I think it'll be even better.
Cake is allowed without me. It's okay.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Arnold. Any further topics for discussion? Then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.